Lang comes in and changes the dynamic of the show, but for maybe for the better. I always say there's two great eras. For me, it's Jackie, then the Artie era. Artie, Howard leaves his microphone on. He didn't really have, it didn't seem like any issues with you during the show at K Rock. It seemed like he was pretty much clean and feeling good, even though maybe he wasn't clean, but he was doing his job coming in. But all the
yeah, unfortunately, I don't think, I think in retrospect he wasn't, obviously. But in terms of dealing with him, he was I tried to communicate with Artie. I liked Artie a lot. Tried to communicate with Artie, in some of his troubled times and failed, but Artie was a great guy, or is a great guy, The only thing I don't like about Artie is a big Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan. But other than that, I can't think of anything we really disagreed on. He was funny. He was quick. He was a big fan. When he first came on, it was at one level. Then after he proved himself a success there, his agent and I had a fairly easy negotiation over, on moving him up. But I always remember being in Vegas one year, for those shows, and Artie was so smashed while we're doing these shows that I was actually sitting, hiding on the side of the stage, with my fingers through the back of his belt loop, so that he was sitting next to Fred, who had the control board. Howard obviously always and still runs his own board, I think. And that every time Artie tried to get up, I would pull on his belt loop to not let him get up, so he couldn't tip over and probably fall into into Fred's stuff. But yeah, Artie was great on the show. He added a different dynamic. Obviously, he wasn't writing like Jackie was writing, but he was adding because he was a very spontaneous, funny guy who had a lot of great stories that just added to the show.
Yeah, and you weren't there, and it was a different time. But how do you think you would have handled how his ending happened?
I don't know. I can't second guess anybody on that. It was, we are who we are. We do what we do to ourselves, and at the end of the day, we have to be responsible for that, and to ourselves. So I'm sure the guys at the management team at Sirius, I'm sure they did everything they could to keep that situation viable.
And no contact with him lately? I know he's kind of coming back out of...
No. I'd be happy to, but I tried, and maybe he doesn't even know that I tried. I don't know. And maybe this message gets to him, and we could argue about who's better, the Mets or the Yankees, now that we've got a viable owner of the Mets in New York. We're excited.
Yeah, these times where Artie, I love Artie, I miss Artie, I ask everybody about Artie, but Scott, tell me about these times when you're watching him fall asleep, or you're watching him fight Teddy or Sal. And did you have sense that there was issues with him, or did you feel weird about showing this, or was it, hey, it's a big party, Artie's laughing at it, it's fun?
I literally had no idea he was doing drugs until after he would say it each time. Then I'd be like, oh, but then the next time I would give him the benefit of the doubt. And again, he must just be tired because he was up all night long. I don't know. But, there became a time when the eyes start rolling into the back of his head sort of stuff. And the eyes, the lids are like half open. And, I had a camera on him. I felt like I had to do my job and capture it, but I felt guilty for it. And the extent that it was funny and he played along, like putting the bed out there so he could take a nap during the interview. Who was being interviewed when he's sleeping there? She's talking about her
was it Avril Lavigne, or
she's talking about an award she won or something, and here's Artie just snoring on the bed. It was so funny. But so the extent we can make fun of it, it was great, but ultimately it was sad, and Artie was a good friend, and generally the funniest person that worked in that whole 20 years of the show. And I just hope he figures it out,
You don't keep in touch with him, right?
I
you
do.
know,
I
he
just
changes his phone number all the time.
Yeah.
So
Just
I'll
find him.
call him once a year, maybe, when I find a new phone number, and we'll talk for a little while, and then he disappears again. So
And just give me some of those times back in the late 2008s, 2009s. Things are breaking down, and what was it like for you just to watch that happen? And how's he doing? If you know,
I mean, well, but first of all, I don't know how he's doing. I'm about 9 cell phone numbers behind on him, so I haven't talked to him in quite some time. I shoot him a DM here and there, but I haven't heard back. I hope he's good. I hope he's with his mom and his sister. The fact that he's not on social media, I think, is a very good sign. The fact that he's not anywhere really, I think, is a good sign. I think he's taking care of himself, what he needs to take care of, number one. As far as the Artie years, the end, I hated it. I hated every second of it because there was nobody more genuine. And I mean, he looked out for me when I got out there. I got out there in 05, 06, November of 06, he invited me to his mom's for Thanksgiving, right? He didn't need to do that. He invited me to his mom's for Thanksgiving. On the drive out there, he was just schooling me on radio and being a comic and how, like, hey, you're doing this Killers of Comedy tour and, you know, you're not going to make as much as you should because you're going to be doing a lot of the material with Levy. But there's guys who are going to be making more than you because they're on the air. And so you got to be okay with that. And you got to understand that. You got to make a decision how you're going to get on the air and how you're going to be perceived.
and I think we talked about it last time, but I'm just curious, like, how much you had to deal with him. Like, was it more Howard coming to you and saying, deal with him? Because there was a lot of issues there in the last 3 or 4 years he was there. How often did you have to kind of personally go to him and say, listen, man, let's get this together. What can we do to help? How many times did that come up for you?
Every day. I mean, Howard and I would meet with him on occasion, but I had to deal with it. And because we were a family and so close, that we felt the bumps in the road. And you know, I didn't understand what he was going through until, you know, we got really into it. And it was heartbreaking. I mean, it was really heartbreaking to see one of your fellow comrades and, you know, friend and a guy with such a big heart and soul as Artie had to watch somebody to go through that. It's just terrifying. And I didn't understand it. I'm not a therapist, whatever, but I was a friend of his, and to see him to go through what he went through. And then when he stabbed himself after I cut him loose from the team, and it was horrifying. I still have shivers up and down my spine even thinking about it. But that's how heavy and how close it was, and what it meant. And you know, that podcast that I was on with Artie that time, it was just so good to see him. It was the healthiest I've seen him in a long time, and it made me feel good that, you know, hopefully he turned the corner. You know, but you know, all you can do is pray. So and hope for the best with guys like that.
Yeah, and I don't want to go on, but I have a question about just what was that day like where you did have to tell him? Like, how did that happen? Can you kind of take me through? I know he was on the show, and the next day, it was a Thursday, he wasn't, so it was clearly that day, right? Tell me, just give me how that happened, like, just the details, because it's interesting, I think, to everyone to hear, you know, someone you've heard every day and made you laugh and you're hoping is good, now he's not there.
I talked to him after the show, and I walked him out of the building, and I just, you know, gave him a hug and asked him to get help. And he did go to rehab for, I think, 24 hours. And then he got out of rehab and he went home and stabbed himself 7 times. And I remember sitting next in the hospital bed with his mom and his sister and Robin, and Artie was just coming out of whatever he was coming off of. And he looked at me like, and I'll never forget that look. It was so chilling. It was like, if he could get out of that bed, he would strangle me. That's how I just, you know, and he couldn't talk. He felt pathetic. I could see, you know, just the pain in him. And it was a very heavy moment. And I just, you know, I'd rather not think about it.
No. Okay, I'm not going to continue. Have you talked to him, though? Have you heard from him since the last time we talked? Is it?
No, I reach out to his manager every once in a while to see how he's doing, but he's kind of laying low.
You did say you texted him. I know he's coming out of hiding a little bit. If you talked to him or had any conversations with him via text in the last couple months?
No, I just I texted him the other day. I've got 2 numbers for him. I texted him to both of them just to tell him I hope he's doing well and if he needs anything. I haven't heard back from him, but I just wanted to reach out and let him know, man, I'm here for you if you need me, brother. And I love Artie. He's one of the most talented people that I've ever heard on the radio, and his stand up is just fantastic. So great fucking guy. Love him.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. I love that a lot of his punchlines ended with having a coked out in St. Louis, or he had a sandwich thrown at him at this place at the Funny Bone. So he's had some fun here. Probably too much fun than he probably will be wanting to talk about in the future. But when did you get a hold of Artie? Because last time we hadn't talked to him. So how did you get a hold of him, and how was he looking? And give us an update.
He was out of. He got out of the hospital, and I think Ian went to his apartment. I'm not sure, and it wasn't long after that he had some more trouble. And then, as far as I know, right now, he's doing fine. I know for a few seconds he did a podcast with somebody, and then I think he was talking about maybe taking a gig. But then the whole pandemic completely obscured everything, because even if somebody wanted to work or was ready to work, they couldn't work. So everything is obscured. So who knows? I just, knock on wood, I hope the guy's doing good, because I love him. He was good to me. He did the foreword to my book. Now he's been in my documentary, and whatever. I wish the best for him. And, he teeters, addiction's a rough thing. I got 20 in a month. I'm going to be 20 years sober, and I could reach for a beer tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's it's a very tentative thing. So,
just give me a thought on Artie, and if I don't know if you talked to him, I guess not.
No, I don't even know where Artie is right now, and I know a lot of people don't know. He's sort of just disappeared. I hope he's okay. I haven't talked to him in probably a year and a half now. So that's a real worry and concern. I just hope he's all right. But great guy, obviously fighting demons, and just a lot of trouble in his life. But I just hope whatever he's going through right now, wherever he is, I just hope he comes out on the other side really good.
Yeah, and hopefully his nose is okay. I saw the last clip of him, and he was so good. He was really nice to me when he came through town, so I root for him.
So it took probably about maybe a month and a half, and then it was all gone, $330,000, because that's how bad depression can be. I just didn't care. Yeah, it's a lot of money, and I like to think I have respect for money, because I've worked hard my whole life, except when I was lifeguarding. That was not hard. But yeah, man, I mean, just to not care about having your future just set. At one point I went to, I think Gary might have told me to do this. I went to a bank to get a mutual fund or something like that. I'd be set up for the rest of my life. Those dark times probably would have never happened if I would have cared, but I didn't care. So the only thing that would get my mind off me and the depression, whatever, just hating life, was by clicking that button, gambling, drinking and gambling. And before you know it, it was all gone. And then you thought you had depression. Now you got a reason to be depressed,
Man, it's crazy. And and again, I laughed hysterically, and it just feels so weird when you look back at it, knowing that you're having these issues. So you mentioned you got fired by Tom. I mean, so no one knows this is going on, right? I mean, how did they find out? Was there a day? I mean, I remember Artie literally fell asleep 8-9 times and always had this great excuse. And finally they just said, man, this is not good. He couldn't make it through an Ice Cube interview or 50 Cent interview. But tell me a little bit about how the end came for you, because it just was, oh man, Casey's gone and they're not talking about him.
Yeah, the story that you hear all the time was that they found me, the story with the Bible. I don't know if you've heard about that one. I think I don't mention that in the book. Maybe, I don't know. I forgot. I admit a lot in the book. It's kind of like what people haven't heard on the air because I don't talk about anything with it. The book is not anything about the show. I think I mentioned how much respect I have for Howard and how it led to making my mental state worse. But I could have been working at a bank and the same thing would have happened. It didn't matter. But the end came when I had been in a relationship that failed, and it was with somebody at work, and it shouldn't have been that way. And
who was it? Let's get into that.
Yeah, I probably don't want to say her name just because I don't know what she's got going on.
That's fine. I think I'll figure it out.
But it was somebody at work, and I shouldn't have been with. And you know, and everybody in the station kind of knew it after the first time because I got suspended the first time.
Wait a minute, were you banging Robin? I'm just kidding.
No.
No,
You got to talk to Florentine about that.
I did, and he wouldn't talk about it. Just kidding.
Yeah. No. That's funny. That's when I actually had to tell Chiasano. That's what he said. He goes, "Are you with Robin?" Why does everybody think I'm with Robin? No, Robin's just always been a friend. We never had anything like that.
I was kidding.
But yeah. So anyway, regardless, I kind of had reached a certain point where there's no going back. When you get so low and you're really sick, and then you start putting alcohol and drugs on top of that, you know, I kept it together for as long as I could, but at the end, I just left work, and maybe I might have said some things that people might have taken the wrong way or something, and I wasn't showing up for a couple of days, so they were looking for me, and Tom actually came to my apartment and made the super come in and open the door, which I thought was I got pissed off about. And then they found me in my crazy knucklehead self with a Bible, and there was blood all over the place. Yeah. I don't know if you heard the story.
No, I have not.
Yeah, so it's look. This is in the past. This is like 2005. All right, this is a long time ago. I was not a Christian then. Bad example of a Christian now, but I am. You know, I've changed a lot about that. But at the time, I was looking for someone to blame. So God was the one to blame. So I had desecrated the Bible in my own blood, which is crazy. I know. I was completely crazy. So Tom came in and he saw this. He saw the empty bottles. So they took me into the loony bin, and I was able to talk my way out of it. So I got out and went in the next day trying to get into work. And then Ronnie was there, and he goes, "Tom wants to see you." So I go into Tom's office, and he says, "You got to get your stuff. You're now suspended until you go to a substance abuse facility. You go to rehab, and you pass these urine tests and HR and everything like that." So yeah, so that's where that went.
Man, I had never heard that.
Yeah, I remember because Howard was so respectful. He never went on the air and talked about it. Yeah. When I was away, people would call in and say, "Where's Casey?" And then the only time we ever referenced it was when I came back. I said I was, or they said, or Richard Christie said I was on a gaycation. That was a good one.
Yeah, Richard had some, it was just funny when Richard was doing all those songs.
Man, have you heard Sal and Richard's prank calls?
Not of late.
It's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life, I think.
I did that when they were doing their swap shop stuff back in the day.
It's like Tradio.
Yeah, Tradio.
They got some stuff on YouTube, dude. It's so funny. Richard Christie and Sal are great guys, and so funny, man. I mean, wow. If people haven't seen that, go onto YouTube and type in Richard and Sal prank calls. You'll laugh your ass off. I guarantee it.
Yeah, it's amazing that they're still kicking around. So you still had issues after you left, but you sound like you finally kind of got it together. How long have you been good, clean, sober? I don't know if you are clean and sober, but I'm going to guess you are.
Yeah.
But how long has this been working for you?
I don't drink anymore. That's just something that was killing me. That's in the book. I had bled out a couple times, and I got some serious health issues now because of the damage that I did, and that's permanent. But as far as the mental illness and all that stuff, I'm never going to be perfect, or I'm always going to be slightly off. But by being positive, by being around positive people, by having Christ in my life, and by doing the right thing by people, that's about as best as I can get. So I'm just doing the best I can with what I have for as long as I can.
No, I mean it's crazy interesting story. I love it. I'm happy for you. And you've talked about the book. You've talked about the book a lot, and so I did want to ask. So just give me a little bit about what. How do you decide? I'm going to sit down. I don't know if you had a ghostwriter, if you actually put pen to paper, and just tell me a little bit about, getting those thoughts out there on paper.
Yeah. So the book is called Simply Amazing, and I couldn't believe it that I don't have a big publisher in back of me. I mean, I have no publisher in back of me. That's another story. I won't go into it, but I actually got to number 15 on the Barnes & Noble top 100 bestseller list. In back of me was Stephen King and Justin Timberlake and Nelson DeMille, and Michelle Obama was number 1. So I got a screenshot of that, and the book did really, really well. So right now I have the follow-up, which is Simply Amazing Women. But you asked me a question. It was how I got that together. The book is 10 of the most, or 11 of the most interesting people that I've interviewed on the air, just people that were amazing with their challenges. For instance, about Werner, who I told you, who was the concentration camp survivor. Shannon Knight, who's a woman who was given 3 months to live. She had stage 4 cancer, and she beat that. There's another one about a guy who had no money except a good idea and a hard work ethic. His name is Tom Butts, and couldn't afford a cheeseburger at the dollar menu, but somehow through his work ethic and perseverance, now has a multi-million-dollar business. The story after story of all these amazing people and the challenges that they go through, which are not unlike anything that me or you go through, but they come out, and it's very inspirational. And what I do is I interview them. It's in an interview form, and I write an intro. It's kind of like my travels, meeting these people. And then the first chapter is me telling you what I've been up to since I left Howard, which is probably mostly about coming seconds away from death, from living with a condition that I have to now, living with the results of my actions, and just taking it day by day and trying to tell people that I don't know them, but there is something amazing in everybody. And your past doesn't define who you are, but it's what you make it. And a positive attitude and doing the right thing goes a real long way.
Yeah.